Okay, so we've got our basic flag set up, and now I'm just going to run you through how we add a bit of wind to blow it around again. Okay, so here's our flag. You can see it's just dropping when I press play. The only field that's affecting it right now is the gravity that's coming off the nucleus. So I'm going to go into my nucleus and add some wind. We go to the gravity and wind tab. I'm going to crank up the wind speed to 150. And the direction here is, the three fields are X, Y, and Z. So I've just got it in the X and the Y, and I've just added a little bit of noise to add a little bit more interest. And there you go. So it's important that you know which way your flag is facing. Obviously when you select an object, it brings up your little mover tool which has the arrows on it, and that tells you which way things are facing. I'm just going to try upping the wind speed a bit more, see if I can get the flag to... Yeah, there we go. Now it's blowing in a bit more wind. But it might be intersecting a little bit too much. So I'm going to grab my cloth object and I'm going to turn up the self-collide iterations to make it better quality. Just chuck it up to 20. You can see here under solver display, if you go to self-collision thickness, these yellow balls are showing me how it's calculating the self-collision. So I'm going to set it to vertex edge instead, give it a little bit more detail to calculate with, turn down the thickness a bit. So you can see only those tiny gaps between the edges where it's not calculating. So that should be enough information for it to create a pretty good self-collision calculation. So I've turned off that display. I'm just going to make it a bit less stretchy, my fabric, and yeah, turn down the bend resistance a tiny bit. So looks a bit better. I'm just watching it for a bit to see if any of the self-collisions are sticking, and it seems like it's working pretty well. It's bunching up, we're getting nice detail, but we're still not sticking into each other, although if I look closely, let's see, I'll turn on edges. Just going to crank up my sub-steps a little more. Just slightly better quality solve. Might turn the noise down in the wind a little bit, simplify my sim a little bit. And maybe I'll just make the make it a bit more powerful, the wind in the y-axis, so it's blowing up a little bit more. So that's quite a busy, turbulent wind that it's blowing in, and it's all a matter of what sort of end result you're looking for. Just going to turn that Y down again. I liked it better before. Hide my edges. Just double checking my details. And I'm just cranking up the self-collide a little bit more. And that seems to be starting to look pretty good. The folds are very thin, you'll notice, which sort of suggests it's quite a big flag blowing in the wind, big sort of satiny type flag. Getting a lot of interesting folds and details in there. As far as I can tell, it does not seem to be sticking into itself and getting stuck. Seems like my quality is high enough. Double check. Turning on edges just to see, get a better idea of what's happening, turning them off. And yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. So there's a nice flag blowing in the wind.